Viewer discretion advised.
Where's my... We're gonna need it. Roger that. Put your hand...
The views and opinions are my opinions and views. If you disagree with them, please let me know in the comments section below.
Fresh off the grill. Inquiry news. Hot, fresh, juicy news. Inquiry news. Dig in.
Fukushima meltdown. That's what we'll be talking about today. Fukushima meltdown. The emergency, which continues to go on and on and on and on. We'll be talking about part one, nuclear Fukushima power plant. We had 4 of them, nuclear power plants blow up. Some of the largest power plants in the world. And, I don't know, hundreds, if not thousands of nuclear bombs blowing up. Unreal. We're going to teach you a little bit, we're going to digress a little bit about the atom first before we get into Fukushima, so you can understand a bird's eye view, just a bird's eye view of nuclear energy. So this is going to be kind of hard and it's going to blow your mind. But we're going to start out with, so you have Ru-236U and R-235U, and they're both uranium. If you put them side by side, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference at all. They look the same. And so what they found is if they put these two things together side by side with a certain distance in between them, they'll start to react. In other words, spontaneously, they'll start to get hot. And it's so hot that they'll burn your hand. And I mean, they'll get thousands of degrees hot, like red hot, like burn. Not only burn your skin, they can get like, 1,000, 2,000 degrees hot. That hot. Maybe even hotter. And so if you put those close together, they'll spontaneously get that hot on their own. Okay? So, and the scientists had found this out a long time ago. It was a lady and a guy, and they couldn't believe it. And so they put it in a paper. Scientists wondered why it was these rocks were doing that, and they led them to uranium. And then somebody said, "Hey, that's energy that's stored up into this rock. How do we get it out of the rock? Because this could lead to power generation." And so that led to this atomic thing. So this uranium, they found out there was 2 kinds of uranium, 236 and 235, and there's some other sister uraniums to it. But anyways, that's what they found. And they found that's when they got the atom, and they found out these neutrons are shooting out of these things, and when they hit each other, they create the energies released, and gamma rays are shot out. Boom. And so when these neutrons are shot out, they split the atom and they create different materials. So they'll create and then other neutrons are released. This here shows 3 neutrons being released when it splits. But it doesn't always shoot out 3 neutrons. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 1. And when it shoots out 1, it produces a different product than you see here. Sometimes it's 2, and it's a different product. Instead of it being a 141BA and a 92KR, it's something different. If it's just 1 neutron shut out, the product's a different isotope. If it's 2, it's a different isotope. Okay, get that? So, pretty simple. On the periodic table, there's a bunch of different ones. So, depending on how many neutrons, when the atom splits, will depend on what type of isotope it will create. and there's only so many it can create that it will split to. So that's what it does. Energy is released, X-rays are released, gamma rays are released in this process, and then other kinetic electricity is also released in the form of heat, which boils water, which turns turbines, and voila, you've got yourself a power plant. But there's more than that. A lot more, and stuff we don't understand. There's all radiation is bad. There's ionizing radiation, which means that the rock is sitting there in front of you and little particles are flying off the rock, and they will do that for a long time, like millions of years, billions of years, or maybe just sometimes they'll fly off for a few minutes, a few seconds, a day, or millions of years, billions of years. And then there's non-ionized radiation that comes from the sun that just hits you and bounces off, gives you a sunburn, but it doesn't continue to give you any radiation afterwards. But all radiation of any kind, either one of those two, is bad for you. Why? Because you get a sunburn, right? Hurt your skin, or ionizing radiation can hit you, and if it doesn't get inside your body, you wash it off, take a shower, and then ionizing radiation, like an alpha particle, can be washed off of you. But if it gets inside your body, that can give you cancer, can give you other kinds of diseases like diabetes, believe it or not, can come from ionizing radiation, which people don't know, and cancers, and a whole bunch of other kind of sicknesses can come from ionizing or even non-ionizing radiation, which we don't know about, like old age and things like that, has been linked to radiation. So ionization, radiation of any kind is really bad for you. A little bit of radiation might be good because it can metabolize milk, vitamin D in your body, but all radiation is bad for you in some degree. All scientists have lost their way. All scientists get back to what we can prove, scientific evidence, physical evidence, and put all theories back on the shelf. Unfortunately, we've got into too much theory, computer theory, and not back to what's real. Now let's get into the atom. All this stuff right here we see is fake, but we're using this to illustrate it because it's easier to explain it this way. Okay? So, but it's really all fake. So we're just going to use these particles, electrons, neutrons, and protons. We're going to show you all this because it's the best way to show you all this stuff, but it's really not correct. So X on that, just so you know. Okay, so if you see all these things here, you have a tau and you have a muon, electron. Of course, I don't think we split an electron yet that I know of. But we have split protons apart, and those you get quarks. So if you split a proton, you get a quark. So it's an up and down quark. You get, we do get electron because you get a VE on there. And then, so you get that kind of electron. You have a strange. You have a bottom up and down, and that is splitting the neutron. So, and all these things, all these particles, these are just some of them. You have some of these particles, or up and down, and so some of these particles, like the Higgs particle, and they find about 5 of these particles a year, new ones, every year, in the atom. So all these ones they got right now, there's probably going to be more of them inside the atom that we know nothing about. So when you're doing splitting the atom, you're also splitting these particles right here. And so some of these particles fly off the atom, and we have no idea what they do. We have no idea where they're going. We have no idea whether they're staying contained inside the nuclear power plant, or they're going through the wall of the power plant and hitting things, or hitting people, or damaging plants, or killing people, or harming people, or what they're doing exactly. We have no idea. and probably no way to detect them, probably not. And so there you go. And so and they all are glued together somehow on these particles. They call it cosmic glue. And so they're glued together with something. We don't know what it is. And so that's what they're together with. And no, it's not electromagnetic waves holding them together. It's something else completely. Another thing that we noticed, the protons and neutrons, you see them all together there, grouped together tightly. They're not. They're not even tightly together. They're spread apart. There's space in between them. The neutrons and protons. There's space. There's actual space there. And all these other little particles have space between them. How much space, I don't know, but there's space in between there. They're not touching each other. They're apart. And the Higgins and the muon and all the other ones, wherever they are, inside the proton or not, they have space in between each other too. So there's lots of space in between the atom, and then and around that space is this glue holding them all together. I don't know if the electrons have glue around them, too, and they go in between the glue or not, but that's what it is. This glue stuff. Very interesting. So the atom looks a lot different than what you learned in chemistry. This is my rendition of see if you notice the proton, neutron separated with all the other particles separated. That's kind of what the new atom is. And then the gray area is waves. The electron goes around in waves. Of course, the wave here, I didn't draw it properly, goes up and down. Instead of like a wave goes up and down. I don't know if you've seen a oscilloscope where the wave goes up and down. So it'd be up and down waves all around. If you have a walnut and the outer shell would be what we call electron shell, and they're going so fast it would make this shell-looking thing around the atom. And then you could peel the shell back and you see the inside of the atom and all these pieces would be in there. And you could peel the pieces apart. When you peel them apart, they would turn into a different... So you can pick apart... So they're all separated like this, all these particles. And so when you split the atom apart, like in half, let's say, then you would have... a different kind of, so you have one kind of molecule, you have one kind of isotope, you split it in half, turns into two different kind of isotopes right before your eyes. Split those two halves again, and it's two different isotopes right before your eyes. And the other half, split those two different isotopes right before your eyes. And depending on how you split it, they become isotopes again and again and again as you split deeper and deeper, and so depending on how many neutrons come out at the other end will be dependent on what kind of isotope you do or have when you split these things. It's amazing. But anyway, they have this cosmic glue, so they know there's this cosmic glue. They don't know what it is, but they know it's there, and that holds the stuff together, which is really interesting, I think. This cosmic glue stuff, that's kind of really cool. But anyway, it goes in between all this stuff, and it holds it all together. And the electrons, when they go in these waves, so when electrons are moving, they're moving in waves, like a light wave. And they're moving around, but you could catch your electron to measure it. So when you measure an electron, you can measure where it is at any given time. But when you let it go, you don't know where it is, and you don't know where it will end up. You can't mathematically figure it out where it will end up at or where it's going to be. So, but when you do measure it at a certain point, we have a device that can measure where the electron is at any given point boom, here it is here. And then it will appear there when we measure it. When we let go, it takes off, and we don't know where it will be at any given point. But when it stops, when we measure it, it's not a wave anymore, it's a particle. Okay? Grasp that one. So basically, it's like a beam of light flying around at one moment, and then we grab the beam of light, and it turns into a particle. How's that? I think that's kind of more of an accurate picture. So it's a beam of light flying around, and then we capture the beam of light and measure it, and it's a solid piece of matter when we do it. And then we let the thing go, and it's a beam of light again. I think it's kind of like that. I think that would be something more accurate. And so, and then we can measure and weigh the electron, and say, well, it's a piece of matter. We can weigh it, and you can measure it. It's electron, and you let it go, and it's a beam of light again. And so you scratch your head on that one. So these particles are not touching each other; they're separate, flying around inside there. And when we split this thing, what happens? They don't tell you. Science doesn't tell you what happens when we split this baby. So when I split this thing apart, what happens to all the other particles, and it becomes a separate piece of matter. So if I split this in half, it becomes two different pieces of matter. What happens to all those other particles when they become a different piece of matter? They don't tell you. They don't want you to know. Another thing that happens too is when the neutrons fire at another piece of matter. Sometimes you have three, right? Well, only one hits this piece of matter, and the other two disappear. And they don't know where they go. That's true. They don't know where they go sometimes. So inside of a nuclear chamber, one hits a piece of uranium, the other two disappear. They don't know where they go, and they're absorbed somewhere. So they're absorbed into the nuclear sidewalls, into the concrete, into the metal, or do they go through the nuclear reactor out into the environment to where you're standing? Maybe. They don't know where they go. They have no clue. I think some of them could be absorbed into the nuclear power plant itself, into the concrete, maybe into the metal. But they're going somewhere. They're not just disappearing. And so, could they be going outside the nuclear facilities into the surrounding area, into your farm, into your cows, into your grass, into buildings nearby that you're standing and working at? Maybe. They don't know. So you're out there farming, and your cow gets hit with a bunch of neutrons, and it dies mysteriously, and you don't know why. And then you eat the cow, so you're now eating extra neutrons from the cow, which then poison you. Yeah, maybe. Your car dies one day, you don't know why it died. Or maybe these neutrons are bouncing around the atmosphere, causing anomalies in the weather or atmosphere, or hitting your body and causing you to get sick, leukemia or other things, cancers. Who knows? They don't know. And what about all the other particles that are in there? Are they going into the environment, escaping out of the nuclear reactor as well? Are they disappearing into the environment? They don't know. So there's a lot of unknowns here. They just don't know. And this could be going on right now around any nuclear power plant. This could be going on anywhere, and they don't know. Or they do know, and they just don't want to tell us. How about that? Fun. On we go. The next thing to talk about, excuse me for coughing, oh my goodness. Next thing to talk about here is gamma, alpha, gamma, and beta, or alpha, beta, gamma. Alpha particles are normally stopped by a piece of paper. beta is stopped by a piece of wood, and gamma is sometimes stopped by lead. But this is not always true. There's some stuff that I read a little bit about all three. Depends on the material it is, the matter it's made with. So some alpha can penetrate paper, and beta some can penetrate wood, and some gamma can go through anything. Neutrinos can go through anything. And if it's a gamma neutrino, it can go through anything. So, like a neutrino go right through the Earth, for example. And there's no protection from it. So if you have a neutrinos inside a nuclear reactor going around, and they could go right through the nuclear reactor right outside of it. And if you're standing outside, you get a bunch of neutrinos hitting you, you probably ain't gonna live very long. And the same thing with gamma. If you got a lot of gamma coming out of a nuclear reactor, you're probably not gonna live very long. And if you have gamma products that are super highly condensed, you're not gonna live very long, even if you have a lead building. And so some of these things that they've told us before haven't been very truthful. So a lot of products out there that are gamma related are extremely dangerous and can kill you. And it depends on the product. And so they've lied to us again. And there's exotic products that are made inside nuclear reactors that we don't know about. And these exotic products are created that are not found in nature, that are created when temperatures get super hot inside a nuclear reactor and fused together to make new products that are never heard of and are not made in nature. And those products, nobody knows a lot of. So we can have particles like the cosmic cement that's around holding those particles together. Some of that could come off. What about those particles? Could those particles go zip through a building or go through things? I don't know. Or what if, what I mean by exotic products, let's suppose that a bunch of muons come off of one of the products, or tellus, or any one of those other kind of products come off an atom and attach to another atom, making it an exotic product. So it has a bunch of these other products in there. Or, a photon gets split in two and it has a bunch of photons, quarks, and they get stuck to another atom somehow. So now you have, instead of a proton, you have a bunch of quarks stuck to another atom. What is that? An atom with quarks stuck to it. That would be something exotic. That would be something we don't see in nature. It'd be something that's never existed before, and now it's existing in that nuclear reaction after it's split. Okay, and when a nuclear reaction starts, it starts slowly, but it starts getting more and more splitting. As it splits, it goes faster and faster and faster and faster. That's how a chain reaction happens. So, first it splits and a couple of neutrons go, and then those hit another couple atoms, and more go and more go and more go, and it just keeps getting faster and faster and faster. And that's what happens. It just multiplies as it goes on. And so this faster speed causes more heat. More heat gets the reaction going, and that reaction that keeps going. Now, of course, they monitored it and could slow it down to a certain extent, but it can cause some weird anomalies to happen, and it can cause some exotic products to be created. And sometimes they purposely create exotic products on purpose. Okay, so suppose you have a weird product being created by this, and you have something that has a bunch of muons stuck to it, and who's to say that can't just go right outside the reactor, right through the wall, and right into your field, or into your cow, or your house, or something like that, and attaches itself to your heart, your liver, or anything else, and it's radioactive. And now you're walking around with some exotic piece of matter stuck to you, and you don't know about it. You feel fine, but it metabolizes, and now you got cancer and die a year later. And your family just like, man, that was quick. He was totally healthy one day, and then suddenly, just without no warning at all, he just got sick, like a cold or something, or not even a cold. He just didn't want to eat food, and suddenly, and felt funny, went to the doctor, and boom, he had cancer and died a year later, or 6 months later, or whatever. And the cancer went through him just faster than could be. Heard of stories like that? Okay, there you go. And you would know that, it might be from this nuclear plant, from this exotic material. And another thing that happens too with this exotic material, I don't know if you know this, but all nuclear power plants have these safety valves, and then whenever it gets too hot or something happens with too much built up of hydrogen inside the nuclear plant, it gets released into the atmosphere. So now you have hydrogen, radioactive hydrogen, or other kinds of gases building up inside there. They just release it to the environment, up in the air. So suddenly you're flying in a plane, getting radiated with this hydrogen radioactivity on the bottom of the plane, or on the plane, or up in the air, and wherever it goes, all over around the world. I was unaware that they were releasing this type of material into the environment, but they do all the time. And then the big stacks you see next to the nuclear power plant, they boil the water. Okay, yep, they boil the water. Well, guess what? The same thing happens when they boil that water. Not the part that boils and spins the turbine, but they have these stacks. They let the water steam come out. All that steam is radiated water, and it lets the radioactive isotopes up into the atmosphere. Unbelievable. I had no idea that those isotopes were being allowed to be released into the atmosphere that way. I just thought it was just regular water that was overheated, and that's what they were doing. Or I thought maybe the isotopes were too heavy to be released up into the air. That's another no. They release it into the air, and those isotopes are being spread throughout the world every day by nuclear power plants around the world. The thing about the U.S. is that the U.S. does try to hold some of that stuff in by the design and how they build theirs. They try to hold some of that stuff into our nuclear power plants more than anybody else in the world, because we build ours better than anybody else does in the world, and we weld the casings and stuff that our nuclear power plants are built with, or built with better casings, and we'll talk about that later in the video. But the Japans and all the other ones, they don't build them like we do. They can't weld the type of casings that the United States does, because they don't have the money, they don't have the technology, they don't know how to weld like we do, and so they can't. Even Russia doesn't know how to weld like the United States can, and so they don't build the casings that the nuclear power plant is built on, and so they're not as good, not even close. So that means they're prone to leaking, they're prone to breaking and fracturing and all kinds of things, and so that's why they leak more, and that's why Fukushima is leaking right now, because the earthquake, probably cracked the hull of these nuclear power plants, and so leaking all that wonderful radiation water into our ocean and wherever else it goes, and into the atmosphere. Wonderful. But we'll talk more about that as we go. But just because it says beta, alpha, and gamma, and they say that it can be blocked with that, I read somewhere in a book that alpha can be misleading, because there are some alpha products that are exotic, like I'm talking about, that can go through a paper. There's some beta products that are out there that also can be the same way, and can go through wood when they say it can be blocked by wood. And the same with with gamma. There's some gamma products that can go through anything. So standard gamma, beta, and alpha products that you can go buy in the store or a chemistry set, and you put them up there. They will be blocked by paper, and they will do their general thing. But exotic products that are also considered beta and alpha, and that won't be blocked by those things, and will go through paper, will go through wood, and will go through lead, and you're not protected by that. I used to be told that water would protect you from gamma radiation. I read that in a book many years ago, and then I went back reading, and I found out that gamma will go through water and won't protect you. And so I just read that recently, and I went, huh? And so what else are they lying to you about? What else are they lying to us about? So I don't think they're telling us the truth about these particles, of what they can do to you exactly. And any device you have, like a Geiger counter and things like that, not all particles in a Geiger counter are counted for. So you can have particles, beta, alpha, and gamma, hit a Geiger counter and not be counted for. In other words, they can hit it and it won't click. And so some particles will click on it, some won't, of the same particle. So you can put it right up to a radioactive particle, and a Geiger counter will click, right? Okay, but there's a bunch of particles that are hitting it that are not counting. It's not clicking it. It's not registering it. And they said that the number could be as high as half. So you could put it up to an apple, an orange, or even a rock, and you could be getting a reading of so many sieverts or so many radiation clicks per minute, and it could be only registering half. So you could say, hey, this is 100 sieverts per minute. Whoa, that's really hard. And it's really 200, or 50, and it's really 100. And so you got to be really careful. And any handheld little tiny thing, forget it. Those are even worse. The little plastic ones you get in the store, even if there's ones that are little plastic ones for, $500 that are worthless. And so those ones are even worse because the tubes are smaller, and that means they're going to even hit less radiation on those than the bigger wands. And if you get a big wand, a circular wand on a Geiger counter, we'll probably talk about this later, that picks up more, but even those still can only pick up half sometimes of the radiation coming off of stuff, off of food. And we'll discuss that later, hopefully in this video if we have time. But I just want to kind of throw that out there, that there is some exotic alpha particles that will go through paper. There are some exotic beta particles that will go through wood, and definitely gamma particles that will go through lead. And they don't sell those in the chemistry sets, and they don't tell you about them. You can't buy those in a store to test it out, but they do exist, and so keep that in mind. So here we have another fake atom picture, but anyway, it gives you just kind of an idea. Here's the chain reaction. Chain reactions are hard to do because neutrons go in all different directions. And remember, I was telling you that we lose some neutrons. They disappear somewhere, which nobody knows where. Remember I was telling you? So we'll have to figure out where they go, and no one knows. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit in a minute. Excuse me. And so as we split an atom, sometimes we get 3, sometimes we get 2, sometimes we get 1 neutron, and they come out and smash into the other atoms, and they split. But we have to we got to come up with a way to do a chain reaction. And this is a core, and if you're looking down this is laying on the floor and you're standing on it. Some reactors used to be straight up on a wall, which I'll show you in a minute. And but you had to use a ladder to go up and down the thing to pull things out, and you used to push the core rods, RU-35, through the wall, and they would drop down into a tank of water down below to cool them down. And then the R38 would just stay in there normally. So if the R35 was pushed through the other side, it would stop the reaction, right? And so, but the problem is the rods sometimes overheated, it got stuck. The core got stuck in there, and then it overheated, and you had big problems. You had a meltdown. So that's kind of a bad day. And this kind of core operation here you're looking at, what they did is they have little holes in between the R38 and the R35. They actually have holes in between there that they put these rods down in there, and the rods are graphite like pencil lead, and they go in between there, and it stops the neutrons from being able to bombard the 238 and 235s and I'm able to bombard each other, so it stops the reaction without having to pull the core. Here's the ones that are steady straight up, and this is probably 20 or 30 feet up in the air. So if you can imagine having to climb a ladder up, and those little holes have a rod that you push out the R238 or 235, you push those out so they fall through the backside down into a water pit. And but if you have a core heating up, what would happen is it would melt the rods. Then you try to push out the other, and what they look like is little torpedoes that had the R35 in them, and so you're pushing those out through the other side, but sometimes the rod that you're pushing with will melt and solidify right inside that hole, and so now you got an issue, and you couldn't push them out, and so then you couldn't stop the reaction, and so then you have a core meltdown, which did happen. This is in England where this happened, and we'll talk a little more about this in a few minutes. But you can see the guy here dressed up in a outfit which didn't even protect him. This outfit that they wear, this one here and others like it, don't protect you from a meltdown and from gamma radiation. It'll go right through that suit in 2 seconds. It'll protect you from like some alpha particles, maybe certain alpha particles, but not all, like the paper thing we were telling you earlier, but certain alpha particles it won't, and certain beta particles it won't, and it definitely won't protect you from gamma radiation, and some x-rays it won't at all. But they give them suits like this and some glasses to make you feel better, I guess, about being in there. It's kind of stupid. You'll see some new outfits I'll show you where they used to wear fur to protect them from it. I guess it makes you feel like when you wrap up in this stuff, you feel safer, I guess, or they feel like they're trying to give you something to save you, but truthfully, you're not being saved at all. I guess it's better than nothing. I guess, if you wear something, it's better than nothing, I guess. I don't know. Those particles are going through it anyway. I don't know. I don't know. It's sickening to see pictures like this, or even to think about people wearing clothing like this when it really isn't helping you at all. And particles are going right through you while you're standing there in front of something like this when it's operating. And then you go in and shower. When you get done with this, you take your clothing off, and you probably rewash the outfit, put it back on tomorrow. But the thing is that while you're in there, it's going right through your suit, standing in front of any one of those holes, and you're getting X-rays and gamma rays coming through the hole, and you're getting tons of gamma and beta and alpha particles and other exotic type particles coming through there. Remember we talked about all those weird particles, inside the nucleus that we know about. Back then they didn't know about those exotic particles. They knew they were there. They knew there's other particles there, but they didn't know, a lot about them. But they knew gamma was there. They knew other things were there. They knew they went through these kinds of suits. So, but they didn't care. They just put you out there anyway and paid you a bunch of money. A lot of people died from cancer and all kinds of things. Some just died, and didn't give a shit. And pretty sad. But anyway, so people just wanted to work, I guess, and made a lot of money doing it, and didn't realize it. Then their kids are born, and who knows what's wrong with them. To this day, their kids are probably all mentally sick. Who knows? They're not probably mentally right in the head. And, and those people probably are running our country. Who knows what, oh my goodness. Their DNA is probably all messed up. I'm giving it to you. And, who knows what those people are like, They probably don't even know they're messed up. They think they're probably normal. They probably think they're fine. They get out of bed in the morning and eat food and fart and watch TV and go to work and do some things, but truly they're not normal and probably don't even know that they're not. But they're not. And all those people get sick in cancer and leukemia and who knows what else, diabetes and all kinds of things, and don't even know it's from this that they're getting it from. And I was told there was like 180 diseases you get before you get cancer that's caused by this nuclear stuff. Amazing. Here's the core looking straight down the United States makes, and others, as you can see here, around the circle. And this one has thorium and other stuff around the outer edge. I don't really use thorium like this in this picture. That's a thorium reactor, but we use mostly R-232 around the outer edges like that, and 238 3 in the middle, and then R-232 around the outer edges. 230, what did I say, 238, yeah, around the edges. And so, but that's how they do it. And the reason they do it in this configuration around the circle is so all the neutrons will bombard the center, will go towards the center, and then bombard the center constantly to create the nuclear fission they need to create. Otherwise, the neutrons will go anywhere. And believe me, behind there, the neutrons are going up and down, and they are going to the left and right. So they are hitting the cement or the metal that they're encased in. Okay, so they are going out, and neutrons are probably penetrating the concrete, building up in the concrete, probably going outside the concrete, outside the building and in the surrounding areas, probably, or building up over time and then going outside the building. And anybody around the building is probably getting exposed to the neutrons. And if you get enough of them, you die. And you get sick and die. I guarantee you, I would not stand around outside any nuclear power plant that is anywhere near this. That's why they bury a lot of these things in the ground. A lot of them put them in the ground. This part of the nuclear, thing, a lot of countries stick it in the ground. because they know that these neutrons go through the building and into the ground. Okay. The United States had some above ground with sand at the base and around the sides. They put lots of sand and lots of pencil lead around the sides. Lots of pencil lead, like feet, and then sand. I don't know what that does to it, but that's what they do. Trying to capture, if it melts down, trying to capture the core if it melts down, but it'll eat right through that and eat right through the concrete and the steel container it's in. And then they feed it full of water. The water is just fed right into the core. Right there, there's a metal container that goes around this outer shell area, and then outside it is the sand and the fire and the pencil lead, and then the water's just fed right into the core, and it turns to steam, floats up to the top, and goes out through pipes and feeds the turbine. These right here are the first final core material that was made in the first nuclear power reactor made in the United States. It was made in Idaho Falls, Idaho. I think they eventually called it Atomic City. And these are the actual pictures you can see here. These are the actual pictures of the core pieces. Squinched down. Now they look a little bit different than that. They put them inside these rods, long rods. They fit down in these holes. And I think the uranium, both uraniums look pretty much the same. Because they're identical. You know, they pretty much look identical. And they put these rods down there in these little holes. And 233 and the 238 or whatever it is. Look pretty much the same. But when they get in proximity of each other, a certain distance from each other, then the neutrons start bombarding each other, and that's when it starts to have problems. They'll spontaneously do it. But they don't like it to spontaneously do it because they'll do it unevenly. And so they normally will flood the chamber with some gas. I forget what kind of gas it is. It's a radioactive gas. I can't remember what it was, fluorine or something, I think it was. But they'll have a radioactive gas that they flood the chamber with when they first start out a nuclear reaction, which will start the reaction faster all at once. So the whole chamber will start bombarding neutron. The gas they flood it with is neutron rich. So it has a lot of neutrons in it as well. And so flood it with a lot of neutron gas, and this neutron gas will start the reaction everywhere, kind of at the same time. Then they'll take the gas out, and I guess where that probably goes? Probably up in the atmosphere. So they probably suck it out through a pipe and then send it into the atmosphere, I'm sure. How much gas that is, I have no idea, but it's got to be quite a bit to cover the whole core. Excuse me. And it starts it probably right away, pretty quickly, and then now once this reaction starts, it gets going pretty quick. You know, it starts bombarding, and as they split, it starts going split, and it gets more and more and more intense as it goes. So you don't want it to get too intense, or it melts. You know, cores can melt because it get 5,000 degrees, 1,600 degrees, 5,000 degrees. You know, you're pouring water on it, and that's cooling it. It's keeping it cool, but the water's turning into steam super fast, and so you want to keep it cool enough to where it's turning to steam, quite a lot, quite quickly, but you don't want it to get too hot, so it melts the cladding that's holding those rods in there, or melt the actual core pieces that you saw, the uranium core pieces. You don't want them to melt, and fall to the bottom of the core. And then if they all touch and both the 232 and 238 melt together, then you got a melted core. Bad news, right? So you the water helps cool it, but I don't think it keeps it cool enough to keep the reaction down. So they put these metal rods down in between, which you don't see here. Little holes that you can't see here are in there. There's spaces in there for a bunch of holes, and they lower that down in there, which is pencil lead, and I don't know how thick it is. It's probably pretty thick, and it can go and it has spaces in between the 233 and the 238 over with 239, whatever it is in between there, and they lower them down in there with a crane, and it goes down in there when it gets too hot, and then it prevents the neutrons from bombarding the main core in the center. It slows it down. So, and they probably could put it halfway down or part way down, and so just the bottom is getting bombarded, or whatever. And so then it slows it down, and it cools down with the water, and so forth and so on. Probably something like that. And they may do other things to cool it down, some other kind of chemicals they might shoot in there, other gases to cool it down. Anyway, and so they do that, and it keeps it cooler, and then it just keeps burning steam, and away they go, and that's it. Pretty much how the nuclear reactor works. And they pump water in there, and it moves. But now, when you're pumping water in there, see, I used to thought and was told many years ago that they had a heat exchanger, and that the water would not touch the core. And the original nuclear power plant in Idaho had mercury inside here. And they had liquid mercury, and the liquid mercury would pump through here, and they had a heat exchanger attached to the side. And then there was another exchanger there with water that went through it. And the two exchangers, the other exchanger would heat up this other exchanger, which heated up the water, which turned the turbine, so that none of the nuclear waste would touch the water and and radiate it. And so then it would turn a turbine, and then it would be unradiated water, and so it's not contaminated. And I remember them telling me that, because I've been in EBR1, I have been to this first nuclear power plant, and so others. I've physically been in there. They make it a museum, and you can go see it. I've seen it. I've been in there. And so they told us that. So I always thought that the new plants were kind of the same thing. Now, if any water or moisture gets into that type of nuclear plants, any kind of moisture, it would explode like a bomb, because the liquid mercury, being heated to those temperatures, first it's extremely deadly, turns to purple vapor. Purple vapor is they used to call it white death in the gold mining industry. If you put purple mercury into a open flame, it turns to purple vapor, and then it dissipates, but you can't see it after it dissipates, and you breathe it, you die instantly. Instant death. And so with it being heated to those temperatures where it's not a vapor really, it's just super hot mercury, and then water gets on it, it will explode like a bomb. Boom. So they have to make extreme precaution, to make sure that new water can get into the mercury while it's that hot, and extremely dangerous. So anyway, so that's what they did, and it was a heat exchanger, and it was built so that it wouldn't contaminate the water. and steam water, and then it would produce steam, and then turn a turbine, and then that water could be reused or dumped out into the river and put new water in or whatever, and re-steamed and recycled, and with no nuclear waste being because this type of nuclear, whenever you get feasible material like this and you add water to it, then that water becomes contaminated, and then that water is now contaminated. You stand next to it or drink it or whatever, you can die. And so you don't want water running into the core, because then that water now is contaminated just like the core is, and if that water touches something else, it becomes contaminated, and so on and so forth. And so that water, a tree drinks it, it's not contaminated. An animal drinks that water, it becomes contaminated. You eat the animal, you become contaminated, right? And so on and so forth. And you chop the tree down and build your house out of it. You now, live in the house. You now are exposed to contaminated wood, and you die of radioactivity contamination from the house you just built out of contaminated wood. Wonderful, isn't it? So, and it can kill you. There's been stories of people just finding a rock, beautiful rock or something a kid found. Wasn't anything spectacular, just a rock, stupid rock on the ground, brought it home with them one day, put it up on the fire mantle, and this is a true story, and the family started getting ill, and I think the brother got ill and his hair fell out and he dies, and then some of the other kids die. The little girl doesn't die, she just gets sick and her hair is falling out, and then the mom, I think, dies, and the dad is ill and bad, and the little girl remembers that they were all not sick before she found that stupid rock. So she took the rock out of the house and throws it, a ways away from the house. Everybody gets better and stops dying. Dad stops dying and everything. And then she realizes something was wrong with that rock. Well, ends up being that rock was uranium. Had high concentrations of radioactive uranium in the rock, and that's what was killing them. There are rocks like that out there in the wild, and so you could pick up some rock like that one day and have it near your house and not know it. And so, and I've heard stories like that, gold mining stories and rock stories like that, a lot of folklore like that, and some of it they claim is true, really happened. And so, just imagine if you were out somewhere and somebody did some uranium mining and concentrated uranium was laying somewhere out there, and you picked up some shiny metal or a piece of metal and didn't know it was raw uranium and had that sitting around your house. Scary. So that's how this works. And if you put water in there on it, flow through it, it becomes radioactive. And if you have cooling ponds to cool it down, that becomes radioactive. The question is, what do you do with all that radioactive water? You put it in something that can leak out. You boil it, and some of it's going to boil into the air, apparently. I thought it wouldn't boil because I thought the metals would be too heavy. It would probably go to the bottom. In fact, there's a book that says it will, but I found out another book from another physicist says that's not true. It will boil into the atmosphere. So I'm at a quandrum as to what to exactly believe. I'll have to believe the one guy that says it will boil into the atmosphere because he knows a lot about nuclear stuff. And since he's the one that helped build nuclear power plants from the beginning, I have to go with him. So I said, wow, I thought you could boil it and get pure water off of nuclear waste, and you could just boil it and get it off of it. But apparently, that's not true. So that is a quandrum. Maybe if you boil it at an angle or something, maybe that's what you have to do. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to do more research on that. But apparently, you can boil water that's contaminated with nuclear waste, and it will boil into steam and go with the steam into the atmosphere. Oh, yum yum. Don't give me some. So that's bad news for all you people out there. So the steam in these nuclear power plants, some of them, has been not going through heat exchangers. Apparently, they've been letting the water go right into the core, get contaminated, turn the turbine, and then if they have excess water left over, they put it into some kind of tower and then up into the atmosphere. Okay. Hopefully you bear with me. See that little arrow there? That's uranium inside that canister. It has a lid on it. And if you can see around, this is the actual picture of inside a reactor. That's also one with a cover on it. And you'll see another one here in a minute that has a cover on it like that. And they're going a beehive circle. And then the ones in the center, that with the lids off, you can see all the uranium. And the ones in the center are also uranium rods that you can see with the lid off. And all those are uranium. And so the outer is like 238, this is 235 or whatever, depending on what it is. This is a very small reactor, so it's not one you can walk on, like the pictures I showed you earlier. This one's really small, and I think this is the one that was in Idaho with these are sunken down in underneath these, which you can't see, I think is the mercury. So these are down into the mercury below them, which you can't see. So there's flowing mercury below these rods, or down into mercury, which you can't see. And they put the lids on, and then mercury gets super hot. It flows, and remember, it only has to get a certain temperature. Mercury does, to boil water. So water boils at 300 degrees. So you probably have to have it at 500 degrees or something like that. Maybe a little hotter to get the heat exchanger to absorb the heat to, boil water. And so I'm not sure what that would be, that temperature exactly. And my guess is 500 degrees, maybe 600, scalding water. The heat exchanger then transfers that to the water heat exchanger. The water boils off of that, gets it boiling pretty good, and then turns the steam, turns the turbine. May have to get hotter than that, I don't know, to really get the steam pressure, because the steam has to pressurize into another pipe, and in order to turn a good sized turbine. And those pressures have to get up pretty high to turn a turbine. So now I don't know what those pressures would be, or how hot it would be. Maybe it has to be way hotter than that. Maybe it has to be 1,000 degrees, inside here in order to do that. Over there, 500 degrees on the other side. I don't know. So it may have to get 1,000 degrees in here. Mercury does before it does it. But anyway, you can see the rods there. This one, I don't think it has the pencil lead, in between there to stop the reaction. This one here, I think they have to pull the rods out in order to do it. I think they have to hook it on, pull each one of these little square beehive things out one at a time to slow or stop the reaction. I think that's how they have to do it on this one. And so they would have to lower that arm you see there, and they're behind a bulletproof 4-foot thick glass, and there would be a robotic arm that comes down. That would be this hook thing you see there, and they would hook it onto the canister, the top of that canister, and it would grab it, and then they'd pick it up, and then set it aside into a water bin, cooling, what would be called a cooling tank. They come back over and hook another top onto the other can, and do the same thing until they're all removed. And then there'll be no more neutrons bouncing around in there. And it would still be super, super hot. Here is the core material we were talking about earlier. And oh yeah, it would be super, super hot for days, not even hours. It'd be days and days and days before that would cool down enough. It'd still be generating lots of steam. But anyway, here's the core material, what we talked about earlier. Remember, here's what it looks like when it melts down. Here's the melted core. Recognize it? Yeah, and that's more than one core. Each little strand there, you see with the break in between them, each one of those is one of those pencil pieces. You can see how it melted down. And pretty interesting, huh? So that's what happens in a meltdown. That's what it looks like. That's what it does. Flakes off, breaks down. Here's a little bit better one, longer pieces of it melting down. And so that's what it does when it melts down. That's what a core does when it melts down. So whenever they talked about a core melting down, this is what it would look like. This is what it does. And this would be both radiums. So both 238, 235, whatever, when it melts down, it does this. And then it would coagulate together at the bottom. So both pieces would kind of come together and mix together in pieces. But this is what it would look like. This is what it does. And that, and leaves these a pretty big mess to try to, scoop that up. And it is highly, highly radioactive, extremely dangerous. Standing next to that would probably kill you. Here's what a room looks like when a core melts. This is a photographic image. You wouldn't see this with your normal eyes, but if you use a special camera, took a picture of the room, these are X-rays, gamma rays, and other kind of rays shooting out from a melted core. This is what the controller room looked like. This is an actual meltdown actually happening. And that's what the controller room looked like from it. Here's what the people look like. They dressed up in special suits. I think that's fur. And they dressed up like that with special gear to protect their face and glasses. This is not protecting them, by the way, folks. It's not giving them any protection. They think it is, and I'm sure people will argue with me that it is protecting them. I'm telling you, it's not. Gamma radiation went right through all that stuff. I don't know. This is the one in England. They have a video saying that some of the people survived it, and they talk to the people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I survived it. It never hurt me." Blah blah blah. And I honestly, truthfully, I think they're lying. I think they're lying. I think all the people that survived it never were in there like these people. I think all these people are dead, and I think they're lying. I think the people that said they went in there in these outfits never went in there. I don't think if they did, they were in there for a second left or something. I really think they're lying. I think they were paid to lie. Even to this day, they lying. I don't think they ever went in this room, or if they did, they were in there for a second and got out. And but I don't think they ever. These people here in these pictures, I think, are all dead. I don't think any of them survived. The reason why is because the stories they tell are all weird. One story is that they went and got a bunch of people to the movie theater to come down to help push those canisters through those holes we saw earlier, and they got a whole bunch of people together to dress up like this, to grab the rods, get on the ladders. They had a bunch of ladders to go up there and push the rods through as fast as they can to stop the meltdown. So anyway, these they have a documentary on it about this one particular melting down, and they took this with a special camera so they could see the gamma rays and X-rays. It's pretty colors, huh? Yeah, those colors can kill you. And so they took pictures of this, and anyway, in the film, none of the guys that survived remember or even talk about the busloads of people they brought in there to go in and help push those canisters through. None of them mention that. They don't even remember those people. And they only remember themselves doing this. But other people that work there, the firemen and other people, remember the busloads of people coming in and helping them and dressed up in outfits and went in and helped them push the canister through. So there's all these eyewitnesses that seen other things happen, and then there's these people that work there that never seen the bus people, that never seen other things that happen. And they tell a completely different story. They tell us that they were in there and nothing happened to them. And like the one guy said, he was a radioactive man and couldn't kiss his wife. And he says, well, nothing ever happened to me, and I got exposed. And then another guy says, yeah, I took a fire hose in there and sprayed it down with a fire hose, and nothing happened to me. And then, but yet all these other people went in there and pushed the canisters through that were not workers from there. But none of these people saw those other workers. None of these people that got interviewed were asked about those workers. It was in another story, completely another reporting about those other people. And so they never remember those people that came in and helped them push these canisters through that were from a movie theater. And other people like firefighters and stuff saw those people. But these people that survived never saw those people. And so the story and they got caught lying. They never reported the meltdown to the citizens of the town. The people that worked there got phone calls that told them to stay indoors and shut their window because they had a meltdown going on, and not to come to work because of the meltdown, for example. But all the citizens of the town were never told until many years later, and cows got radiated and the fields got radiated. They found out they had leaks in the system that no one was told about, that people got exposed to, the crops and everything. All kinds. It was amazing. You have to watch the documentary. But there's other documentaries on it too. And this other documentary is talking about these people in the bus. They went to a movie theater and grabbed the bus, went there and grabbed a whole bunch of people in the movie theater, males only, and brought them in there to help push these canisters through. And because you saw that thing, it's 40 feet in the air with all these holes, and they didn't have enough guys there, these guys in this picture you see, to be able to push all those through quick enough before it all melted down. So they just grabbed people at a movie theater, a whole bunch of them, brought them there, put them in some suits, ran them in there, and they grabbed the pole, as these long poles, and pushed these canisters through the hole to the other side. And some went through, some didn't, whatever. If it got stuck, they left it, they did another one, and so forth. So some of the canisters did go through, fell into the hole through the back. Some didn't, some got stuck, Okay. And then as soon as they did that, they climbed down the ladder and ran out. That's how they had them do. I think they did 1 or 2 canisters each. And then that was it. Then they ran them out because, they're going to die if they did anything more than that. And so these guys, were there and did some canisters. The guys that were in the movie, like one guy said, I looked into the hole and I didn't dare look into the hole very long because it blinded him. It's just, with these guys, what they see, they don't see all these colors. What they see is just a pure white light in the hole. It's just super blinding like the sun. That's all they see in the room. It's just blinding white light in the room. That's all they can see. The camera, the special camera they take with it, can see ultraviolet light and can see gamma rays and all that, which you see around the room here. Some of the pink colors and all that are gamma rays and X-rays. I don't know, the ultraviolet light is probably X-rays, probably, and some gamma rays there. But all that stuff, the X-rays are are going right through them. It's X-raying right through their bodies, guys. So they're getting X-rays, and no, it's not like going to the doctor and just getting an X-ray, for a bone. This stuff is like every 3 seconds it's X-raying them. Boom, it's like flashing an X-ray every half a second or something like that. Or more. It's not like you do at the doctor. This is a repetitive X-ray every half a second or something, super fast, and high intensity X-rays. So they're getting nailed just with that alone, not to mention gamma rays that are hitting them too. Who knows? So I don't think any of these guys in this picture survived. I think they all died. I think some of the people from the movie theater all died, and I think the guys that are in the movie, I think those guys are liars. I think not all of them. The one stayed home. I think of course he said he didn't go in there, so he's one of the ones that was the person that exposed the thing to the media. He's cool. He's honest, but I think the other guys that said they went in there, I don't think they went in there. I think they're all liars. I think they paid to lie. I think they were told, you're doing this for God and country, you gotta lie and say you went in there and nothing happened to you. And you gotta do it until you die. You can't, it's how it is. And so I think they've been lying their whole life, saying, I got exposed to the radiation and it never hurt me. That's what one guy says in the picture, but when he says he looks away from the camera and stuff, he doesn't look the camera straight in the camera lens. He looks kind of away from the camera lens and says it, and then and I'm like, I think the guy's a liar. I think all those guys were liars. I think the people here in this picture that we have, because he never shows any picture like this is me in the picture, here that they have. He doesn't have any photos of himself inside the building or say, yes, that's one of these guys here in this picture. Here's a picture of me there or whatever. I was dressed up like that or anything. He doesn't show anything like or explain that he dressed up like that or anything. He doesn't even say he dressed up like this, in a fur coat went in there or anything. And then when he says that he just looked in there and it was blazing, he just say, oh, I had a goggle and a face mask on when I looked in there, nothing like that at all. It's very suspect. So I think they're lying. I think they're liars. I think all these people died. I think the theater people died. I think they all died. I think a whole bunch of other people died in this incident. And I think it was all covered up. And I think a lot of people around the area outside that catastrophe died in town, around town, and everything from this thing. And I think they just all lied about it. I think animals died. I think I killed a lot of things. And they just covered it up and buried it all and didn't say anything to anybody. Or tried to anyway. And so now people go back even to this day and talk about it. And if you get anywhere near this area, you're probably going to die. Even to this day, if you have a farm there or live there or eat the stuff there, you probably get cancer, leukemia, and die. And there's one lady in the movie that had leukemia for one of her kids or two of her kids. And she said, I wondered about, one of my kids had leukemia, and I wonder if it's from this. And it probably was. And so, anyway, so I just want to show you this, a meltdown. And then I'm going to talk about the Idaho meltdown, the first nuclear power plant ever made to make electricity, also melted down. Just about every nuclear power plant, I think, is, ran into a meltdown that's ever been invented, I think. But the very first one melted down, folks. Here's what an atom looks like when it splits. And you can see the particles there. Aren't they pretty? So when you split an atom, this is some of the particles that you can see from an atom splitting. I'll just show you what it would look like all the pretty different colors and everything, and trying to figure out, what all the particles mean. I was going to talk more about the Idaho EBR-1 that melted down, but I just wanted you to know that that also melted down. The first atomic power plant ever built melted down, and I did show you the melted cores for it. So right here. So I think it pretty much covered that. I was going to talk a little bit more about it, but there's not a whole lot. The whole plant did not blow up and it didn't catch on fire because they stopped it. They pulled the cores out. You saw the picture of the cores in the circle. They yanked all those out as they were melting down. So, but I want to show you, again, the melted core. And interesting enough is that the melted cores didn't catch on fire like these other things, and they were in liquid mercury, so that was extremely dangerous. Strangely enough, as far as I know, when I read about it, they don't know why it melted down. So stuff that I read doesn't say, oh, they melted down for this reason. Probably because the neutrons were building up in the reactor somehow. And that's exactly what happened in England. They built it up in the reactor, and it melted down. It was going to happen anyway. One of the thinkings of getting rid of a core that gets overheated is to heat it up more, to burn off some of the fuel or burn off some of the excess heat. They think by turning it up hotter and hotter and hotter, that it will burn off some of the extra built-up neutrons. And that's what they think, because then the neutrons then split and turn into other lighter material, I think is what the thought is. And that's what happened to Chernobyl. Chernobyl built up extra heat, and they took off the safety valves to turn it up, and then when it started going out of whack and getting hotter, they just turned the heat up hotter and hotter, causing it to explode. And so that's exactly what happened. But in Idaho, what they did is they hurried up and just pulled the cores out. Like here, they just yanked them out, even though they were melting down. They yanked what they could out inside those canisters you saw, and they were in canisters, so they were able to pull them all the way out. They didn't sink to the bottom of the reactor because they were in canisters, and instead of those clad things. These were in canisters, so it can capture all the core, and so but they still don't know why it melted down, and probably from those neutrons building up in there somewhere, the loose ones that they can't account for. And so the England one, the same thing. The neutrons probably built up into the walls, into the metal and concrete, and the walls probably built up a lot of neutrons, extra energy in there. And so, and the same thing happened there. They saw it building up. And American physicists warned them about this, by the way, that they might have some extra energy built up in there. And so when it started to happen, to overheat, that is, they thought, well, we'll just turn it up even hotter and burn off some of that extra energy. They thought burning off the energy by making it hotter would burn off some of the extra neutrons or whatever's inside the walls it would dissipate. It would burn off outside the walls. I guess that was a theory, and what it did is it just made it worse. So it started a train reaction that couldn't be reversed. And so probably because it started to get temperatures hot enough to create fusion, instead of fission, it started creating fusion, like the sun, and started consuming air and turning that into hydrogen, oxygen, hydrogen into fissile material, and now you really had something burning. And then when they put water on it, it made it even worse, until it, ran out of fuel. And so that is what happened. in England and in Idaho, it probably went out because they pulled it out of the containment field to put it into water, and so it had no more neutrons to keep it going, and it finally went out. So they got lucky. So, but it shows that nuclear power plants can have runaway nuclear fission, uh, uh, on its own if they don't watch it. And burning it off is the wrong thing to do. You want to do is stop the reaction, and that's what they did in Chernobyl. Is they turned it super hot as well, thinking to make it hotter. It would burn it off, and it didn't work again, and it exploded as well. And that was the same theory. They all had theories of getting it hotter, and every time they did, it exploded. Hey, anyway, I'm back with you again about fusion power. And earlier I was saying, I didn't say giga. I was saying instead of saying giga counter, I was saying gidget counter. Sorry about that. I always say gidget counter for some reason. It was when I was a young kid, I always pronounced it wrong, and so I have a bad habit of popping up the wrong word. So a Geiger counter is what I'm supposed to be saying. So it's a Geiger counter, folks. And so just to throw that out at you and apologize. So when I was a kid, I was calling it the wrong thing all the time, and people would correct me all the time, and I'd feel stupid. So I feel stupid again, but I'm not going to go back and re-record it and fix it. So just to let you know, Geiger counter. Anyways, right here above is how it's created. So you have a hydrogen 2, hydrogen 3, and then those two. Now, when you're trying to create this type of, the sun is what creates this type of fusion is done by the sun. So what happens is you have the protons together on hydrogen 2 and hydrogen 3. When you put them close together, they repel because the protons are positive charged, and so they repel each other, okay? And so they found a way to where if it's really warm, like 50 million degrees, and you bring them close together, they have a tunneling effect, they call it, where they will get really close together and they will actually combine together and then cause some energy release and combine a new element. And you can see here what the element on this one is, for helium plus 3.5 MeV or whatever. Anyway, and it will shoot off a neutron, and have an extra neutron flying around. So and it'll create energy and also X-rays and gamma rays and probably those things as well, and create a new product. So unlike the other, remember the other was creating all these different kinds of products. This creates a heavier product, just one heavier type product, and you could probably use other things besides helium. This one here, hydrogen. Hydrogen. You could probably use other kinds of products besides hydrogen to do this. So you don't probably. They had a guy in Utah at BYU University that claimed he could do this at room temperature, and it was called 0 point energy. And that's amazing. Actually, that's really amazing. I believe it can be done, by the way. And there's some reasons why I have that thought. And I believe it could be happened a lot lower temperatures than 50 million degrees, because we have bombs, an atom bomb or hydrogen bombs we have that blow up, and I don't think they get up to the 50 million degrees to have a hydrogen bomb go off. And I'm sure it's all top secret, just so we don't know what they do exactly to get the temperatures high enough to bring those two together. Now, I do know something kind of interesting from my old days of metal. If you take steel, steel is magnetic, right? You put a magnet on it, and magnet will attach to it. But if you take steel and heat it up to the melting point of steel, it loses its magnetivity. It's no longer magnetic. So you could put a magnet into boiling hot steel, and it's not magnetic anymore, which I think is an interesting phenomenon. And so I think it's kind of like that here. Once it gets to a certain temperature or something, I think these two then the magnetic effect that is repelling these goes away or lowers, and then allows them to combine. But when these combine, they have an explosive charge that happens and release energy, lots of energy. And you can get that with water. And when you make water with oxygen and hydrogen, if you put those two together, it's an explosive effect. Boom! It will. It's like a bomb going off. So you put those two things together, mix them, they explode. And that's kind of what these do here. Once the temperatures get just right, but to get a continuous thing going, that's what they're trying to do with these new power plants, is to get a continuous chain reaction is what they want on this going, so they can make clean power, and they haven't been able to do that, or they pump in a lot of, they get to 50 million degrees. They figure it's about 50 million degrees where they need to have it at, to where they will kind of come together automatically in a chain reaction repetitively to create electricity. But yet they haven't been able to produce it enough to get what they put into it out of it. So they'll get some electricity out of it, they get some power out of it, it goes, it's pretty amazing. But they haven't been able to get enough power back that they put into it, which is a lot of power they put into it to get those high degrees, by the way. So that's where they're at with that as far as the technology is. But I think there is some lower temperatures that happen in some exotic ways, and nuclear power plants. And nuclear power plants, when they melt down, for some reason, this can happen where a nuclear fusion happens. And I don't think the scientists understand it. I think they know about it, and they don't understand it, honestly, truthfully. And it does happen. So in Fukushima, nuclear power plant, I believe fusion and fission happened in there. And same with Chernobyl. And and probably the same thing in this other one in Idaho. I think a little bit of that went on in their plants, and which is extremely dangerous and not fun, because it could be like a bomb going off. If this type of thing went on enough, it could be like a bomb going off, atomic bomb going off. It could sort of be a hydrogen bomb going off, and that's what exploded inside these plants that we'll see later in Fukushima. That's what blew up. It was the hydrogen buildup inside all these places. And anyway, we'll talk more about that later. But I just want to show you that this fusion stuff, and that I believe this went on in all these plants meltdowns. I forgot one more thing. Also, even if these two H2 and H3s get close together, sometimes it can also release energy. So they don't always have to combine. So they can just get really close to each other and not combine, and also release the energy. I'm not sure if the energy level will be the exact same as combining or not, but there are cases where they get real close and the energy is released, and then they don't bind. So that also happens, and I wanted to put that down because that's really important as well. So just to throw that in there too. Okay, now we get to talk about Fukushima. This is the Fukushima nuclear reactors, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you can see here the little blue squares down to the bottom there. Those are supposed to be where they're keeping the rods, the spare rods, or the rods that are, left over, cooling down, or the new rods they're going to put in. Okay, and this was done by this news source you see there. Problem that is that I'm not sure if that's accurate, because, and so you can see them here. Okay, the rods down there lower, and then the other thing next to it, the little round dome thing, is where they put the rods into for the nuclear. That's where the nuclear chamber is. And earlier in the video, you seen the one of the nuclear things, the little canister things with all the rods in them. That's with this bigger thing, the little orange, yellow, and kind of a yellow top on it is supposed to be pull that open, and inside there would be all these rods that you stick in there. And these designs, I believe, weren't done by the U.S. I think these designs are done by the Japanese and probably Russians. So here it is. You can see it there. The containment vessel, that's where they put all the rods in there. And that's where all the reactions happen. And the water goes in there and gets hot and goes through there and goes out into the steam turbines, which are, I think, on the roof. And then the fuel pool's right there. Well, wait a minute. Then they come out with this. And this is accurate. I know it is accurate at the bottom because I know all about that round thing down below. That thing is for water to cool the inside of the reactor. Water pours down into there. And so I know that's true because of some of the videos I've seen with them putting, right now, they were cooling the reactor in the middle. The core stuff is in the middle. Water pours into that core. Now think about that for a minute. Water pours into the core. It gets radiated with radiation. It then turns into steam and comes out of there and turns a turbine. I think it was on top of the roof or somewhere. And then, or maybe another building. I can't remember. And then it turns that turbine. And then where does that water go? Where does it go? I don't know. They don't say. Out into the ocean, maybe? Radiated water? Radiated water out into the ocean. Nice. That's just what we need. So, anyways, so the water goes through this, I believe, right into the center of that containment thing there. Probably between the gray and the red, probably is where the water goes into. Supposedly not touching the core, but, the radiation is going to get through that containment. The United States is the only place that can make and whale the proper containment so the radiation doesn't go through it. But anyway, supposedly. I don't believe that. I think they're all liars. Lie. Anyway, so the water gets radiated, goes through the air, and where does it go? I don't know. Around and around we go. And then the round thing down below is supposed to be an overflow for water. If it gets too much water in there, it has an overflow. It goes down the bottom tank. And then where does it go? They don't have any, you see those big towers in the United States. They're big white ones. And they're big white towers, and they have steam coming out of them. That's where our water goes. And then it's supposed to steam off the water and leave the radioactive material below, which it doesn't. It doesn't. And it goes into the atmosphere and all the surrounding area and the cows and everything else it goes into. That's right. And on the airplanes that fly overhead. So if you ever fly over a nuclear power plant, don't do it. That's the airline. Are you flying over this nuclear power plant? Get a different flight. I wouldn't go over a nuclear power plant if you paid me $1 million. Don't ever fly over a nuclear power plant. Don't live near one. Don't be anywhere near one. Run if they have one near you. Okay, so don't be near a nuclear power plant. I know they probably tell you it's safe and they're full of shit. You know, when they go up to it and they're gives you cat around nuclear power plant on the outside. Hey, look, there's nothing. It's not recording anything. You say, well, did you check it for a muon? What's that? Did you check it for neutrons coming out of it? No. Well, yeah, just pick them up with this. No. You gotta have a counter that picks up neutrons. That one picks up other kinds of stuff, other radiation, but not neutrons. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, or muons or neutrino. Do you have a neutrino detector? What's a neutrino detector? Well, go get a neutrino detector and come out here and see what's doing neutrinos through there. I guarantee it is. And you got to have a big, the right kind of neutrino detector to pick them up. They don't have those kind of detectors available around those plants. They got the security guard walking around with this little thing, tiny little thing. It doesn't pick up anything. Well, of course it doesn't, because they're not going to give you the real unit that you need to have, because it costs millions of dollars, number one. Number two, they don't want you to know what's really coming out of that thing, because if you really knew, you wouldn't want that plant there at all. You'd say, close it down now. You would have that closed down in 5 minutes. Once you find out that the tanks were steaming out stuff that has a billion-year half-life, particles that are now landing on your core, I think you'd probably want it closed down. And so, anyway, so here's this one. And if you see the little blue areas up there, those are the tanks up top of the building, towards the top of the building, which makes sense. That's why the buildings are tall. If it was the other way around, like I just showed you, the buildings would be shorter. I don't think they'd have to have such a tall building, and it'd just be all the empty space. Yeah. So I think the buildings are this, and the tanks are up the top, and some of the buildings, are missing the top. And I do know that the bottom round thing is underground, and part of this red area, the red area you see there, that red thing, that's down in the ground too. How much of that, I'm not certain. At least part of it, maybe half of it, is in the ground. Okay, and so then those tanks are still up high, still up where they are, because they need to be able to take the cap off the top of that thing. The big red thing at the top has a cap, and they got to take the cap off, and then they have to use something to go down into the cap and remove those rods out of there. Now, some people say they remove them from the bottom, and but I don't think they do. But they could, I guess, remove them from the bottom, done that way. But they have to have a long enough area to do that. This was built with cheapness in design, so this is like probably the cheapest nuclear power plant you could build, and that's why they built it this way. Which is not, I would never recommend a nuclear power plant built this way, because the rods, are super, super, super long, and so they can be in there for a long period of time. Probably don't have to change them out that often, but when you do, it's a pain in the ass to get them out. And then a pain in the ass to get the other ones in, and then you're good to go for, a long period of time. And then the building itself is probably not protected very well. You can see the hollow on the far left side. You can see the hollow concrete blocks. There's nothing in between them. So the building's not, it's very unsafe. I guarantee you, this is not, I don't even think any of the designs in the U.S. are built this way. And so it's built this way by the Japanese, and was trademarked as the cheap way to build nuclear power plants. And the design is completely flawed, as we now know. It blew up. Normally you have a water feed at the top of the building. What they should have had is a water feed at the top where these other things are at, where where the top ones are soaking in the water. They should have had a couple more empty bays up top there with just plain empty water just sitting there, and had an emergency water feed that could fed into this reactor. If everything else shut down, the battery backup shut down, everything else shut down, then the water feed could have kicked on automatically or by manually someone turning it on, and went into the reactor to cool it down, even if it was off. And then that would have solved, it would have never blown up and everything would have been fine. But they didn't do that. They thought the batteries would do it. But so the batteries were in the building next door, and, it flooded with water. The tsunami flooded it with water and covered the battery banks with water, and so you couldn't turn them on. They were destroyed. Backup generators were underwater, and this tube thing down below was underwater. Another thing that happened is the earthquake that happened cracked this containment vessel that red thing's in. So the red thing is in that steel vessel that's around it, and there's concrete around it too. That they don't show you in this picture. There's also concrete that goes around it. Anyway, it's cracked, and I seen the crack. They showed the video of it. If it's a true video, I still wonder if that's even fake. But the containment vessel in there is cracked, and so when they're pouring water into that vessel to keep it cool, the water is just going through that vessel, down, out, and into that round thing down below, and probably, in between, into the ground, and so the water is just pouring in there, and all the becomes radioactive, of course, extremely dangerous, and ain't that wonderful? But we'll get into more of that in a minute. I just want to show you this because if you notice how this goes up to the top there, the roof, see how far it goes from the top to the roof, top of the roof? Doesn't give you much space, does it? Well, now we're going to take a look at that little bit of space right now. See, the top of the building? So I'd say halfway through the building, the top is where all that stuff, all those bays are with water. And that's not much space there. Now we're going to find out what happened here. I also think these buildings are too narrow to have the fuel ponds down at the bottom. It's too narrow. And so I think they were kept at the top. So, they'd have to be fatter at the bottom to keep the fuel ponds down there. Otherwise, you wouldn't have enough room for the rest of the stuff to be in there. So I think they did keep the fuel ponds at the top of the building. Here's the tsunami that took place. You can see here it is. Check this out. It's unbelievable. That's probably somebody in the Corps too, by the way. That's pretty horrible. Hate to be that guy in that Corps. And as you see come through, I got some more here for you. Look at this. This is the earthquake. Look at that, just cracking the ground right there. That is amazing. Here's this building shaking. Here's the tsunami more coming through, pouring in. And then here in a minute, you're going to see it hit. There's the buildings right there with the power. Boom. It floods those buildings in front. This is where they keep the generators and the and everything in those square buildings. Battery backup for the nuke plants there, and everything to keep them cool. And this also knocked out the power, the general power as well as the generators. All that was wiped out right here, and so bummer. Again, folks, boom, there it is. And that's what happened, is a big explosion. Each one of those, so the battery backup didn't work, the generators failed, and they could not cool the core. And so the core is overheated, melted, got super, super hot. Helium or hydrogen was released and they exploded, each different one. All of them, all four blew up. Okay, so anybody tells you all four didn't, they're full of crap. And each one blew up at different times. And as you can see here, that's an explosion. And all that stuff coming out of there is super dangerous. Like this stuff here is radioactive contamination coming out of there into the air, into the sea, all over the place. Highly radioactive shit that will kill you. If you stood next to there, you'd die in a second, 2 seconds. You flew over in the airplane and that stuff, you'd die. You'd die. Helicopter, you die. Whatever. And here's the building. Now you tell me, looking at that building, look at that building there, that the ponds that are housing all the excess stuff, with the rods in it, are being cooled. I don't think so. And I don't even think the reactor is being cooled. It's destroyed. Look at that. So even if the ponds were down below, I think they're destroyed. And if they're above, they're certainly destroyed. Right? So those ponds contain millions and millions and millions of rods, millions and millions of pounds, enough to make, you could take those and process them and make nuclear bombs out of them, lots of bombs, and blow up lots of things, and they probably produce plutonium out of this to make bombs. I'm pretty sure of it. Look at that building there. It was probably just a repeat of some of the buildings. It's just trashed. And so it exploded. These are highly radioactive buildings. I guarantee you couldn't walk with 2 feet in front of this building. Here's one, they got some water pumping in there. How they got that water set up there is beyond me. Because if you walked anywhere near that building, you'd probably be dead. and this is pumping out, million sieverts per second probably in radioactive fallout. Going up, if you remember back, I showed you that picture of that building with all the purple stuff. Right now, if you took a film picture with the same camera they did there, this thing would be glowing purple and all those pretty colors. That's what this would look like right now. So yeah, spending fuel. Look at that right there, sitting out in the open. Oh my gosh, this is a catastrophe. Right now, everybody in the world should be descended down on this thing and try to figure it out, because this could kill, a lot of people in the world, man. This could kill everybody in California. This could kill, it's amazing. Amazing. This is so dangerous, it's not even sort of funny. And look at this. Oh my goodness. All the nuclear waste going into that water. Oh my goodness. It's scary to even think about. Here's the spectrum here, and we're way off the chart to the right. To the right, as we're way beyond. Here's the nuclear missiles over there. we're off the chart with this kind of stuff. Here we go. If you took a picture of those plants, even today in 2018, it would look like that. This is a snake. All the black, snake's dead though. All the black there on the snake is radiation. All the black in the bird is radiation. Okay, all the black is radiation. This is a special film that can see radiation. This is a special camera they made that sees the radiation. All the red, the green, all the red is radiation. Bad radiation. Kill you kind of type radiation. Yeah. And then here, okay, this is service. This little handheld thing is a joke. It's too small. This is DNA being attacked by radiation, and it breaks your DNA up. So you see these service right here, the Space Apollo had being up there. Hardly any, entire lifetime, 4,000, 3,000 servants. And the Fukushima, they're getting over 1 million servants. At one time, they were measuring up to 1 million servants per hour coming out of the plant. they said, oh, the number's got to be wrong. The number's got to be wrong. We got to redo it. Shit. Who knows what's coming out of that plant? And here's the DNA being attacked just by X-rays. X-rays script your DNA. Just an X-ray. And so, you get a gamma ray burst on you. Unbelievable what it can do to you. Who knows? These are waters we've never tread before. And in the United States, I heard they're going to snell up how much you can get. See here, a flight 39 millisieverts from New York to Chicago. 26. By the way, if you fly too many hours, they'll block you from flying in an airplane. By the way, so if you fly too much in a year, flying in an airplane, the United States will say, "Oh, you can't fly anymore. You're above your health risk." By the way, I don't know if you knew that. I didn't even know that. That's pretty wild. I don't know if they still do that, but they used to. Right here is nuclear fission stuff, how long it lasts. Here it is in a reactor. These are the medium fissible products that are left over that are dangerous, and some a few hours, some a few days, some longer. And these are them that are produced. There could be other exotic things when a meltdown happens, and that's when the fission gets involved, and this gets involved, and who knows what that creates, because you got fission going on there with the smaller particles, and then that creates a big particle, and then these things they attack the big particle and creates another kinds of particles, and I have no idea. They don't list what that will do, what that makes. Who knows? Can make some exotic products that we don't even know of, and that aren't nature, that aren't listed here, and that can be extremely harmful to you. It might go right through that nuke plant and buzz around and kill you, and so here we go here's the ones that are dangerous. Here's the dangerous ones. These are my favorite. Some are a million years, and some are a billion years. Oh my goodness. So now we got this stuff flying around the atmosphere, soaking into the ocean, that are millions of years, that are half-life. That means it takes half for a million years, half for it to go down, and then another million years for the other half. And then it turns into another isotope, which might be another million years, another million years. And right here, it's right here, billion years, 1 million years, and then down there at the lower bottom, a billion years. So, well, that's good. I'm going to wait a billion years for this stuff. Imagine if you get this stuff on you. You breathe it with your lungs, so now you got a billion-year particle in your lungs that's going to kill you. And some of the stuff soaks right into your, like this iodine 129, half-life 15.7 million years, and it can go right into your thyroid gland. And that's being spewed out of these wonderful half-life, nearly a billion years time alive. Hazardous. Sister isotope thorium. Oh, yeah. Billion years, folks. That's for half-life. 2 billion. Here it is, coming from Fukushima, heading right to the United States coast. It's getting Alaska. It's getting California. It's going to get Mexico, Baja California, all that area. See these little barrels down there? They're in the blue and the gray. I'll show you here in a minute, them a little up close from Google Earth. Here we go. Now you can see them. All those are full of toxic radiation liquid water, because they had to pour water down on there into these reactors, as you see there, because inside they have the core, and then they have the top off somehow, I don't know, but they're pumping water in there, and it's leaking out. So what they did is they got a pump and started sucking that water up and putting it in these barrels. And that water, just I was told, just like a 5-gallon jug of that stuff. And you put it in front of you, and you walk by it, you would die within a few minutes. You would just die in a few minutes. And everybody that kept walking in front of it, for a million years will die just walking in front of it. And they want to take all this stuff and dump it into the ocean. Now, what happens with radiation, let me just explain a couple things to you. Let me just tell you a couple things that happen to you. And when this stuff gets in the ocean, people say, oh, it just dissipates out and it's no big deal. That's not how radiation works. This type of stuff that's in these barrels, is highly contaminated radiation. It's ionizing radiation. What it does, let's say you get some on your hand, and your hand touches the doorknob, or your hand touches something else, whatever it touches, okay? That now becomes radioactive, okay? It's now ionized. And somebody else touches that doorknob you touched, and they're now contaminated. And on it goes, and everything you touch is now contaminated. And they need to cut out all those items, the doorknob, your cupboard, your blanket or floor or cup or whatever else you touched will now be contaminated. They have to cut all that stuff out and bury it. Okay? Gotta bury it because it's all contaminated. And when you dump it in the ocean, same thing is going to happen. The contamination goes in the ocean, touches other clean water, contaminates that, and it spreads. So 5 gallons of it now turns into 100 gallons. 100 gallons turns into 1,000 gallons, and so on and so forth. And it just spreads and spreads and spreads and spreads. So now the ocean turns into a cesspool of radiated water. And it's extremely deadly water. It kills anything it touches. And you go for a little swim in California thinking everything's great, and then you get sick and die. You go home, lay down, don't feel too good, and that's it. You're dead. Mom goes, hey, what's wrong? He's not moving. Yeah, I don't know. Take him to the hospital. They go, yeah, your son passed away just a minute ago. We don't know why. We don't know why. They were not going to tell you why. Because most of the hospitals aren't set up for nuclear waste contamination, and they don't even know in the hospitals why you died. So they send you to the morgue. In the morgue, they don't know. They have no idea either. They cut you open, look in there, and they don't see nothing. They don't have a Geiger counter sitting there to test you. So they say, I don't know, heart failure, I guess. And the heart stopped. Okay, done. And that's it. Now take a good look at this. This is a real creature. This is what radiation does. Nuclear waste does to you, your DNA. Take a good look at it. This is a baby born that the woman got radiated with nuclear waste. She got radiated, had a baby. This is what it looks like. How would you like to have one of those things? That is gross. Isn't that sick? That makes me want to vomit. Imagine having a baby like that. Scary, folks. Very scary. And we're going to have babies like that now in America because all the coast of California is now covered with this shit from Fukushima, and it's continuing to be covered with shit because it's still, even if they put a thing over Fukushima right now, it's going to go through it. And it's going to continue to contaminate the waters. This is outrageous. So, this is what the Democrats like about nuclear power. Yeah, and you go, what? Democrats like nuclear power? Absolutely. Like Hillary Clinton and her Uranium One deal. And Al Gore, and I can explain this to you in a minute, and Elizabeth Warren, and Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer, and all those kind of people love nuclear power plants, believe it or not. And the reason they like those plants is because they're carbon-free. Carbon-free, but they pollute the environment, and they kill people, and they do this to our babies. And they don't give a shit. They don't care about you. This is what they'll let happen to you and to your babies. This is what's going to happen. This is happening. This is a real baby right here. They don't give a shit about you. They don't give a shit about Americans. They don't give a shit about the Constitution of the United States. They don't care about you. So what if you have a baby like that? Too bad, it's your fault. This is what our power plants are producing. Spewing that shit right out of our own plants, by the way. But you didn't know that. That's right. Our plants produce the same kind of waste like this that Fukushima is producing. And it's coming right out of the smokestacks and right out of the water and everything else. And we're burying it, but we're not burying it right. And it's leaking out and leaching out. And it's going to produce babies just like this right here in America. Not to mention Fukushima now polluting America too. We already got our own pollution. And we're producing stuff like this too. You just don't know about it. They don't want you to know about it. They kill babies probably like this and then hurt and bury them. Don't say anything to anybody. Oh, your baby died. Yeah, can't see it. Yeah, you betcha. That's the truth, folks, right there staring you in the face. And those people, like the Hillary Clintons and those kind of people, like the nuclear power plants because they're carbon free. Even though they kill and murder people like this all the time. And probably going to end up murdering the whole world with nuclear waste. And everything's going to be the undoing of us all. If we don't get a nuclear bomb exchange first. But, and if that happens, the whole world will probably be gone. We won't even be able to survive and live in it because it will, that waste a billion years. Can you imagine a billion years old particle laying all over the ground around the whole world? Holy crap. And then you eat that and, grow a plant and eat it and it has it in your body. And then suddenly you have a baby like this. You're not going to want to have kids anymore. And then, and there's other creatures other than this. Putin has his own creatures too as well. And the United States have their own creatures too as well. So, and they're hiding them. They're hidden. They're lying to you. It's horrible, folks. It's really horrible. We need to stand up and take our country back. Take back the world. And stop these globalists from doing what they're doing to us. And shut down the power plants until they can make them safe. If they can even do that. I don't think they can. I don't think they can make our nuclear power plants safe for us. And I'm a little leery about the sun fusion thing too, because the fusion, I don't know if they can contain that. If they can't contain the sun thing burning in there and it gets out loose, I mean, it could destroy the earth itself. It'd be like the sun on the earth, burning the ground and we can't put it out. Yeah. They say, well, the fuel's all gone, so it'll go out. Well, no, maybe it burns maybe it burns the sky or burns the air or falls in the ocean, starts burning the ocean. I mean, that's where a source of water, right? That's what it burns. That's what its fuel is, water. So what would stop it from falling into the water and then have all the fuel it wants to burn? Now we have a sun on the planet, in the ocean, burning indefinitely, and we can't put it out. What about that? Boy, that'd be a bad scenario, wouldn't it? And then now we got the sun, a mini sun sitting on our oceans. It'll be warm there, I guess, if you want to go there. And you wouldn't be able to go in the ocean anymore because you'd burn to death. Maybe that's how we'll end up dead. Instead of the sun actually destroying our earth, we create our own sun and it devours our own earth. Yeah, maybe that's the ticket. And so I'm a little leery about those machines, honest truthfully. And the other machines that keep making these quarks and things, I don't know, folks. Messing around with these kinds of things and not knowing what they'll do to us. Look at this thing again, right in front of your face. We're messing with stuff, and look what happened. Imagine these other things. We have no idea what those things will do. And I think maybe, doing some limited stuff on those things may be okay. But I don't know. I'm starting to wonder if we produce this kind of crap, what is that stuff doing to our planet, to our Earth? you know. And then they're lying to us. They lie to us and lie to us and lie to us all the time. You know, you don't see this on CNN News or NBC or any other networks. They don't, you know, you'd think you'd see this on the news immediately, and this would be you know, emergency, you know, to see a baby born like this from radiated stuff. You think it would be the top of the news, and everybody would be scared shitless and start to do something about it. Unreal. Late.